And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about a hypothetical trade that would send Nikola Vučević over to the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Isaiah Stewart. We're going to be talking about if this is something that makes sense for the Chicago Bulls to explore. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. We're talking about a hypothetical trade here between the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls. And so if you want to read about this is the article title that you can check this out under. This is written by Austin McGee. And so within this article, you can click a link that says trade ideas within this article. And it's actually going to take you to the original tweet. And this is what this article was talking about here. And so this is the tweet. This is from Jake Weinbach here. And he's the one that threw out this hypothetical trade with the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls. And so go ahead and take that down here so we can take a look at this. But he says that the market for Nikola Vučević has been quiet up to this point, but the Pistons are an intriguing team that would emerge as an under-the-radar suitor for Chicago's skillful center. He talks about Detroit would value an experienced stretch five of Vucevic's skill set, and the two-time All-Star would be capable of playing alongside Jalen Duren in a potential double big lineup. If there's genuine interest, the Pistons can approach the Bulls with a proposal centered around 24-year-old center Isaiah Stewart in a straightforward swap deal. Vucevic will be entering next season on a 21.4 expiring contract, which means swapping Stewart for the veteran big man in this scenario could create cap flexibility for Detroit in 2026 as well. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start there with this hypothetical trade. And so when you break it down like that, I mean, it is something that definitely makes sense here for both teams. And let's start with Isaiah Stewart and just really, what he brings to the table and why this might make sense for the Chicago Bulls. And so bringing up the numbers for Isaiah Stewart, look, he's coming in. He's averaging 6 points a game from last season, 1.4 blocks, 1.7 with the assist, 5.5 with rebounds, 75.9% from the free throw line, 32.1 from three, and 55.9 from the field. So when you look at the numbers, it's not anything that really jumps off the page, but it's the intangibles and really what he does on the defensive end that I think really would be beneficial to the Chicago Bulls, because Isaiah Stewart at 6'8", he's an undersized center, has a 7'4" wingspan, but man, he plays with plenty of intensity on the interior. We're going to look at his defensive numbers here in a moment. But when you're talking about a team like the Chicago Bulls that are really trying to get things turned around with this team, we can look at the numbers. It's great that you have players that can score, 20 and go out there and get you, 20 rebounds and so on, just throwing numbers out there. But you need the little things to happen. You need somebody that can play defense. You need players that are just going to go out there and scrap. And that's exactly what you are going to get from Isaiah Stewart. In fact, when I look at Isaiah Stewart and really what he can bring defensively and from an identity standpoint, he reminds me of a player from back in the day in Charles Oakley. Like, I think that I see a lot of those similarities there when you're talking about an undersized big that just really goes in there and competes his tail off. And I think that that is exactly what you would get from Isaiah Stewart. And I think another plus with this is that he's 24 years old. And so that's something that is mentioned there in the tweet. And so being 24, with the Bulls and they're trying to get younger, that does definitely fit their timeline. When you look at the contract, 3 years at $15 million is really not bad, because I think that that is a movable contract with Isaiah Stewart, especially if he can come over to the Bulls and be productive, counting that this trade were something that does happen. So once again, this is hypothetical, but I think that this is a deal in which, where you look at the money, it's something that can be moved, especially with the way that the salary cap is going up. And so not bad right there. And I think that this really still puts you into a situation where the Bulls could go out there and still try to find a way to get some stability at the center position, which I think that you still would have to if you make a move like this. And so just going back a little bit more into defensively what Isaiah Stewart really brings to the table. And so this is going back to Austin McGee and what he wrote. And so once again, make sure you hop over and check out the article. But he just really breaks it down as far as just the numbers and really what Isaiah Stewart brings. And so, just talking about the fact that he averaged 1.4 rejections in only 19.4 minutes per game, saying that Stewart was one of 5 players to average more than a block per game in less than 20 minutes. Then also, too, look at the opponent's shot percentage and just how it goes down here. And so he says that Stewart's opponents Stewart's opponents shot 10.7% worse within 6 feet of the basket when he was the primary defender. And so that just lets you know just how good he can be around the rim, which is something that the Chicago Bulls absolutely would welcome, is just that defensive presence. And you have to think about it like this. With what the Chicago Bulls have with Ayo Dosunmu, and then also too, what they could be getting here with Isaac Okoro, if you were to add Isaiah Stewart, defensively, you could feel the intensity would pick up. And then that's not even counting what we would get from Noah Singate, and then also to Modest Bazelis, what that would look like. And so defensively, you could see that this team could really change things in a hurry here if they were to make this trade. Now, on the flip side of this, when you look at this, just from the Pistons standpoint, I think that number one, it does make sense if they were to go out and get him, especially since they had the type of success that they had a season ago in the playoffs. And so I do think that Detroit, is probably thinking, look, we're more so in a win now situation. And so bringing in Vooch does make sense. I think that, look, he would work just fine with Jalen Duren. I think that that is a situation where they could play off of each other. I think that, with Duren, he would be able to defensively maybe cover up some of the things that Vooch cannot get done. And then also, too, Vooch is not going to crowd the paint like that. And so, they would probably be able to work off of one another. And then when you look at the fact that, yes, it is 21.4 that the Detroit Pistons would be trading for, but it's a one-year deal, right? So they can go ahead and say, hey, it didn't work out, or, whatever the case may be, and they could simply move on, or they could go ahead and renegotiate and come back with something that's team friendly if it is something that both player and team really feel like it was a great fit. And so I think for the Detroit Pistons, that's why it would make sense. And I think that also too, when you look at the fact that the fit with Cade Cunningham and just working off the pick and the roll and just the pick and pop stuff, I think that that is something that would work too as well with what the Pistons want. Now, am I in the camp of just going ahead and doing a player for player swap? Absolutely not. I still think that the Bulls should still be trying to at least get a second round pick. Now, will they do that? That is going to be the question. We continue to keep hearing the language around Vooch is that the market has dried up. And so we'll see what happens. I still think that there's something that can get done by the trade deadline. And I'm starting to think that even if something doesn't get done by the trade deadline, I could see something getting done next summer, because I do think that there's an outcome in which AK, the front office, go ahead and they re-sign Vooch to a team-friendly type of deal, just like they did with Lonzo Ball. So it has a team option on the back end of it. But more importantly, it's a number that makes sense for a swap, because I think that that's really what I'm seeing with the trend with the Chicago Bulls. It seems to be that they're doing player for player swaps, and then the next trade they're going to make, they're going to get all this trade capital. But no, I'm just joking. But anyway, right now, at this point in time, they've just continued to keep doing player for player swaps. And so I think that that is a situation where we could see that again with Vooch. and maybe they're waiting for the right situation, because keep in mind, with Alex Caruso, he ended up with the Thunder. That was a winning situation for him. Lonzo Ball headed over to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had a lot of success last year. And so the talk is that they're looking to be trending for more success this year. And so that's a much more of a winning situation than what's going on with the Chicago Bulls. And so maybe that is the situation that AK in the front office want to get Vooch into. They want to go ahead and get him into a winning situation. So I don't know, not in the front office, not sure what they're thinking from a negotiation standpoint. I just know that if it comes down to me looking to go ahead and trade Vooch, I would still think that he could net you at least a second round pick. But you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking, because again, there's pluses on both sides of this thing. If you want to go ahead and move on from Vooch, you could do so. You do get a younger center back that is going to bring some defense, that is going to help your team get some identity. And I think from a contract standpoint, yes, it's a little bit longer, but that contract is definitely something movable with the way the salary cap is trending. And again, you go ahead, Vooch goes on his separate way there. And, it's just a 1-year contract for the Pistons. And so they get some salary cap relief after the year. And also, too, like I said, he fits in with what they want to do from a team concept. So it could be a win-win situation from a player-to-player like type of swap. I mean, this is what we've been seeing, excuse me. So it is something that it logically could make sense, but we'll see what happens. And once again, this is a hypothetical trade that was suggested. So I just want to be clear with that. But you guys let me know in the comments here, would you be comfortable in trading Vooch for Isaiah Stewart, or do you want to hold on to Vooch and see if the Chicago Bulls could get a little bit more? Because remember, I'm not saying that you're going to get some amazing value for Vooch. I think that ship has sailed, but I do think that there has to be some type of possibility to at least get a second round pick. But you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.